In our stakeholders session, we looked at different businesses' issues and the affected parties, which include the importance of stakeholders within different businesses. My expectation of the stakeholders session included understanding a complete definition of what stakeholders are and their role within a business, examples of key stakeholders within businesses and how they can improve models and structures. The session actually involved learning about the importance of them and stakeholder analysis. This included a discussion on the involvement of individual stakeholders and how much power within a company they possess. Also, we discussed power and interest matrices, which shows the best way to separate stakeholders into different categories. The session was vital for first-year students as stakeholders are relevant in every business. Therefore, stakeholders also can make financial decisions and affect the management structure of a company.
For this topic, we discussed how a crisis of the economy, such as the recession, comes about and how it affects a business in today's society. Before we went into this MDP session, we as a group did some research about the recession. We were then expected to create an argument about this crisis and debate on this with other groups from our MDP session. However, we were surprised by a number of strong arguments put forward by other teams in our MDP session about how best to recover from the recession and their ideas. This all relates to business and society, as this crisis in the economy led to businesses facing a period of difficulty and being forced to adjust and change how they operated.
In our corporate social responsibility session, our group discussed the different types of corporate social responsibility involved in the company Abercrombie & Fitch. Our expectations of this session were high as we were interested in this topic. By taking part in a two-way discussion for and against the cause, we extended our knowledge of how different companies undertake corporate social responsibility in different ways. Corporate social responsibility is important for business and society, as having a good reputation will help ensure customer loyalty.
We had a session on business ethics in which we thought would have entailed a presentation on why businesses should practice ethical behaviour. However, we were asked to research and discuss if ethical behaviour is expected and/or worthwhile for businesses, then write a group essay on it to further our knowledge. This was then quite useful for our next session on CSR, as there are strong links between these two topics. Business ethics was a useful thing to study as it's a major key in the business society today due to the influences it can create on how customers perceive the company image.
Within the session held in week 10, as a group we discussed the risks of a list of disruptive technologies. This included airplanes, smartphones, electricity and containers on ships. After looking into what was the definition of a risk, we then identified different areas and points of each technology which could be viewed as a risk. The group's first expectation of the session was that it would be challenging, as we couldn't generate an example of a risk for containers on ships, as we were confused where the technological aspect was involved. However, with some guidance from our tutor and further online research, we were able to gather points of risk for each technology. This session on disruptive technologies and risks relates to business and society because technology is constantly evolving and organisations need to take advantage of this, but need to also consider whether these advances are beneficial or not. Our Week 8 session focused on negotiating. At the start of the session, each group was assigned a negotiating scenario and then discussed key points that they would use to argue our case against the opposing group. In addition to this, our group took notes on the situation so that we would be prepared to answer any questions other groups may have. Prior to our Week 8 session, we watched a video on negotiating and roleplay, and we wrote notes on the key points and strategies of negotiating. Going into this session, we had a good idea of what kind of negotiating scenarios our group would be involved in, and how we would go about arguing any strong points the opposing group may have. This session was very relatable to business and society, as in every walk of business and industry, negotiating does take place, whether it be to resolve disputes in the workplace, to reach an agreement, or on the price of a product. Negotiation is used day to day in the business, thus it is very important for us to work on and improve on these skills.